A common thing we need to do in preparing images for teaching and learning is to remove someone or something from an image. Now, to demonstrate how far we can take this with Photoshop, let's take this image that would have made a great slide background if only I had noticed this channel marker here with this bird on it when I took the picture, or noticed this other channel marker or all this other stuff in the background. Well, let's get rid of all of those things. Whenever you begin a major image restoration like this, always start by jumping your image to a new layer. So with the base layer selected, press Command-Option-J or Control-Alt-J on your keyboard to jump that image to a new layer, and then let's rename this new layer Clean. Now let's focus on getting rid of the red channel marker and the bird. Now for this image, since we have a fairly consistent look throughout most of the image, let's start off with an image repair tool that we haven't seen yet, and it's called the Patch tool. You can access it here underneath of your healing brushes. Now, the Patch tool works by clicking and dragging a generous selection around the outside of your image. You don't have to worry about being too precise, but make sure you're dragging into the background fairly well and close off your selection. Then move your mouse inside of the selection, click and drag, but keep holding down your mouse. As you do, drag over to another portion of the image and find an area of your image that looks like it'll match fairly well for the content that you have. Now, what I'm focused on is the edges of the shoreline to make sure that those match up with the water and some of the light and dark patches of the water. When you release your mouse, Photoshop will use those pixels as the base for the patch, and it'll heal around the edges for you. Now, let's repeat that process and get rid of the red reflection of the buoy in the water. So once again, we'll click and drag around that area, and then move inside of the selection and drag over to another area of our image. And then when we find an area that works well, release to patch that. We might as well get rid of the green marker back here. So we'll click and drag around that selection as well. Move inside and now drag along the shoreline and look for an area where the shadows are not going to make an obvious repeat. That looks pretty good. And release. Okay, we're about 80% there. Now, deselect using Command or Control D, and let's clean up some of the rough edges by grabbing our spot healing brush. Then adjust the size of your brush using the left or right square bracket keys. I'm going to go for a brush with a size of about 20 pixels, which you can see up in your options bar. Then paint over the rough edges with horizontal strokes to blend in those areas of your image. Now, the reason we're using horizontal strokes in this image is because that's the predominant direction of the lines in the water. Now, with those channel markers all gone, we can now turn our attention to some of these other elements in the background. It looks like there's a person back here, so we can keep using our spot healing brush and just paint over top of the person to get rid of them. And then let's get rid of this bird that's here, and we might as well get rid of the number 12 like that. Now, at this point, we've seen a lot of Photoshop's tools for repairing and removing objects from images. Now, I'd suggest using images like this one and some of your own to practice removing objects and get a good feel for using tools like the Patch tool, the healing brushes, and the tools that we've seen in other movies like the content-aware fill and blending using layer masks. Take your time and always work off of a copy on a clean layer.